Plant Talk with Dave Decock is on the air, brought to you by Thompson Greenery, Strand, Ace Hardware, Buffalo River Sales, Chisholm Trail Farm, the Garden of Healing, and Jean's The Right Plant Place. Dave Decock, our horticulturalist, welcome back to the studio.
Well, it's great to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. Okay, let's get right to some of the questions here, and we'll take your questions at 35270. You can also call us at 237-5948, 800-880-5346. What is the best method for getting rid of white clover in the lawn, Dave?
Okay, you need to take the normal dandelion killer is not going to do the job. So if you tried that, it's not going to work. It looks like it works, but then a couple weeks later, the clover's back, and so it doesn't really work. So something that you'd use for Creeping Charlie, something like that would work. Something that's for more hard-to-control weeds. If you can find a weed killer that's listed for hard-to-control weeds or things that'll control ground ivy or Creeping Charlie, that will work on clover.
Okay. And Dave, let's talk about, well, how's everything looking for you?
Well, after this rain, it looks a lot better.
Yeah, we needed the rain, didn't we?
Right, definitely.
Yes, yeah, we really did. How are the apple trees? Anything to do with apple trees this time of year?
Well, if you haven't sprayed with the 7 for the apple maggots, it's a good idea to do that. Now, the new product that they're using now is an organic product. It's not the old liquid 7 that we used to use in the past. This is called 7, but it's something totally different. And it lasts on the trees a lot longer. I know on the container it says if you use it on your lawn, you have to wait at least 24 hours before you water. So it must stay on the leaves pretty well. Okay. I don't know how often you're supposed to use it, but they claim it'll last up to 3 months. But I guess myself, I try and do it every month or every 2 months just to be sure.
Okay. Why are the maple leaves looking yellow in color?
Well, that's a pretty common problem. It's sort of a every year problem. What happens is maples, they're not able to take up as much iron as they need from the soil, and the iron is what makes the leaves green. It's in the chlorophyll, so it's a cornerstone of the chlorophyll. So when they can't take up as much iron from the soil as they need, the leaves will get yellow because of the shortage of the iron.
Okay. Someone said, I got some newly planted grass that's probably no more than 2 months old. Lot of weeds coming in with the grass. How long do I wait before spraying broadleaf?
Well, they say normally at least big enough so you cut it at least legitimately twice. It should be large enough so you've cut it twice. And after that, you should be able to use a broadleaf weed killer. Okay.
So twice. That's a bummer, though, when you see all of those weeds coming up in brand new grass.
That's common because the weed seed was in the soil. And so when you put the grass seed down and you start watering, of course, every weed seed that's there thinks it's time to come up. So they come up at the same time as the grass does. The only good thing about it, grass, the weed killers you use on broadleaf weeds, of course, don't affect the grass. So that's the reason that after you've mowed it a couple times, you can go ahead and spray because the grass, once it's mature enough, the grass won't be affected by the broadleaf weed killer.
Okay. Someone says, my son gave me a cherry Juliet tree, and I need to know when is the best time to plant it. They use cherry Juliet in quotation, so I don't know if that's I
don't know either, to be honest. I haven't heard of it. What's the question about it?
Cherry, it says, okay, maybe it's a Juliet dwarf cherry tree.
Okay.
If
she's got a cherry tree now, it's actually going to be a tree. That's something that should have been planted in the spring if possible. You can plant trees this time of the year, but it's like planting grass. If you get cool weather and a lot of rain, planting grass now is fine, but usually we don't.
Right. Okay, so if you have a tree and it's not planted yet, Dave, would it be better to plant it now? I think
you'd be better off to do it now than to try and keep it in the pot till fall.
Right.
I think it'd be better off to do it now, and if we get hot, dry weather, you can go out during the day when you get a chance and hose it down good with water so that the leaves get moisture so they're not as likely to burn.
Yeah.
But if you're in an area with heavy soil like we are at Fargo, once you water it in good, don't keep watering it heavy every day, because if you do, you'll kill the thing. So
yeah, that makes sense.
They can suffer from lack of moisture in the leaves long before they're dry. So just because the leaves are starting to look bad doesn't mean it's dry. So you have to check the soil to find out if it's dry or not.
Okay.
So don't water too much.
Don't water it too much, but also water it because it's hot this time of year, right?
Yeah, you can spray it down with a hose or with a sprinkler or something to kind of protect the leaves a little bit from burning.
Okay, another question in at 35270. I have tomatoes that are turning pale green, almost white on top. Is it heat stress or something else?
Well, it could be sunburn too, because they will sunburn if the fruits develop and they're getting too much sun, they'll actually turn white because they get burnt from the sun. And that's the reason with tomatoes, we have to try and control tomato blight so we don't lose all the leaves. And we don't want to prune so much that we take off the top leaves, the ones that are shading the fruit. So if they are exposed to the full sun, they could be just getting sunburned. If they were too dry, you'd notice it with the leaves too. It wouldn't be just the fruits.
If the fruits are turning, what did they say, the pale green, almost white on top, are you worried that the fruit won't develop?
Well, it's just they could be sunburning. That would be my biggest concern, that they can sunburn.
Okay.
Dave, have you ever seen that phenomenon where, I know it's happened with tomatoes and I think maybe strawberries too, where the seeds inside start to germinate before they've been separated?
I haven't seen that.
One of my neighbors was telling me that in the South, that was something that they worried about. If you had an overly ripe tomato that was still on the vine and you waited too long and the temperatures were hot, they could start to germinate. Same thing with strawberries.
Well, I suppose they could, because they'd have plenty of moisture.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. To me, it's like one more reason tomatoes just don't want to seem to grow the way I want them. Right?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Someone said, starting to notice thistle popping up in my yard. Best removal to not kill grass.
Thistle's showing up?
Thistle, yeah.
Oh,
how do you remove thistle without destroying the grass?
That's tough. You could try using...
one by one.
Right. You could try using a weed killer for hard-to-control weeds. I know there is something for poison ivy. There is a weed killer for poison ivy that would work. But the problem with it is it probably would kill the grass, too, because it's a pretty strong dosage. So you could try something for hard-to-control weeds. As soon as one shows up, hit it with the weed killer and see if you can get them under control that way.
If you pull something like a thistle, and it's got a pretty robust root system right below it, would you, and it took up, let's say, like a good amount of dirt with it, would you treat anything in there, or would you try and dig out any more, or is it a fruitless effort?
It's pretty much a fruitless effort, because you disturb so much by digging, trying to get the rest of the root out, that you can expect that when you do, it's sort of like my ferns at home. They go under my edging and they get out in the lawn, and I spray them with a weed killer. A little while, they come back again. So they keep trying. Thistles are the same way. It's like quackgrass. It's got a massive root system.
Okay.
You just have to keep after them.
Okay. Let's get to another question here. Someone says, a greenhouse told me a royal maple does well in our soil. You've said maples struggle in our heavy soils. Who is right?
Maples do struggle in our heavy soil.
Yeah. A royal maple, is that different than the maples we're talking about?
I think it's a red maple.
Oh,
I think it's a red maple. If it's a red maple, it struggles here. But most of the maples don't do as well here as they would do at Detroit Lakes or in the more acidic soil or soil with better drainage. They do well, much better in those soils than they do a heavy soil.
Okay.
There are some new varieties which some of the bigger nurseries will carry, which will do better here.
Okay. Someone said, can anything be done about maple gall mites? Supposedly doesn't hurt the tree, but the tree doesn't look healthy.
Well, the mites cause, maples get a lot of, they get these red blotches on the leaves. They get little red bumps on the leaves. Those are all galls, and they're caused by mites. If they're caused by mites, the only way you could really try and do that, if you tried to control that, is there are some chemicals that are made for mites. And I know BioAdvanced has a 3-in-1. It's called insect disease and mite control. something like that could be used that would hopefully take care of the mite problem in the future.
Okay. So there is nothing, if they choose not to treat it, is it okay? Is
It's
it just
okay.
aesthetic?
It's a cosmetic problem, yes. Right,
yeah,
definitely.
just cosmetic. Are we supposed to prune tomato plants?
Well, it depends. You have to be careful doing that. So like I mentioned before, when it gets really hot and the fruit starts to develop, they can get sunburned, and that's not good. So if you prune too much on top, you can get sunburn. The idea of pruning is that later in the year, when your tomato plants are flowering and it's obvious that those flowers are not going to develop, people will sometimes take those flowers and the branches with those flowers off because they know the fruit's not going to develop. So that you can certainly do. Otherwise, it's like trees. The more leaves you've got on, the more energy is being putting into the plant. So I guess if I didn't have a good reason to prune the tomatoes, I wouldn't.
Okay. Someone says, curtail is what you spray on lawns for weed clover control. It's no longer available, but can be made with 2,4-D and Stinger.
That's the stuff that you're not supposed to use in city limits because of the grass clipping. Right. So that was perfect for farm use, but not for city use.
Last time that came up, we heard about it later.
We heard plenty about
it. We did.
You don't want to go there again. I mean, if you're in
the
farm and you want to do it, that's fine. If you're in town here and you get a hold of some, that can be a problem because the grass clippings, the stuff stays with the grass clippings and it goes into the compost and people get the compost. And then, of course, you've got the stinger or whatever it is yet causing a problem. So, if you're in the city, you're better off not to be doing that.
Do you use compost at all yourself,
No,
Dave?
I haven't because when I've done it, I've ended up with a lot of weeds.
Yeah.
So all the thistles and all that other crap that come with it, or you might get glass in it. There's a lot of things come in it, but I know a lot of people will get it and use it. So,
someone says, "Why isn't my Japanese lilac blossoming this year? It blossomed last year. Any ideas?"
Well, I don't know that. I haven't heard that being a problem, but there are certain trees that if they flower heavy one year, they may not flower as much the next year. I know apples are that way. I don't know with lilacs if that's the case or not. It may have been bad growing conditions last year because many times the flowering buds for a tree that flowers this year were developed last year on the tree. So if the growing condition wasn't great last year for it, it wouldn't have as many buds. So it might be flowering less. That would be my guess. I don't think it's anything wrong with the tree.
Okay.
I think it's just the conditions.
Dave, how often do you fertilize your flowers or vegetables, or are they the same?
Well, it's pretty much the same. It depends. It depends what kind of fertilizer you're using. If you only use granular fertilizer, you almost have to work that in the soil. So I'm not as excited about using something like that during the growing season. That would be something I would put in the spring, work into the soil in the spring of the year. This time of the year to fertilize, I would say no more than every couple weeks. And you could use something like Miracle-Gro, which is a powder that you put in a jar with water and you put it on the garden hose and you spray it on all your plants. And that every couple of weeks would be plenty often.
Okay. Every other week or every couple of weeks, I guess, would be great. Plant Talk with horticulturalist Dave Decock is on the air and taking your lawn and garden questions. Dave, to the phone lines we go. Brad is waiting for you.
Hi, Brad.
Hey, hi, Dave. We have some people come and spray our lawn a few times a year.
Right.
And they were talking to me, and I was talking to them, I guess, about the areas under the pine trees and stuff, and we have some bare spots on our lawn.
Right.
And he said, well, we could maybe come and do a lime application on the lawn. And I'm wondering, is it something that I could buy somewhere and do myself?
I'm not sure. Why would you do the lime? Lime is something we typically don't use here.
Okay.
Is it because the grass is doing poorly under the pine trees? Is that why they're talking about the lime?
Correct, yeah.
No, that's not the reason it's doing poorly. It's because the roots on the evergreens are very shallow. And when a push comes to shove, if there's a shortage of moisture or nutrients, the tree gets it, the grass doesn't. And the only way to keep it nice is more application of keeping it moisture and maybe a little more fertilizer there. A lot of people, that's the reason you'll see a lot of people will put edging around out about as far as the branches go on an evergreen, and then they'll put mulch inside of that, and they won't have any grass. And that's because the grass doesn't do good when it competes with evergreens.
Mm-hmm. So even if I try reseeding and maybe...
Right, no, you can baby it along. I mean, it's going to be a struggle because you're always going to have that problem. You got the big brother out here who is grabbing all the fertilizer and nutrients he needs, and he's taking the moisture. So the grass has to try and struggle to compete with the tree. And it just doesn't work very well. I mean, you can do it if you really want to do it, but that's the reason a lot of people will put mulch and things so they don't have to go through that struggle.
Yeah, it would take just a lot of extra watering and stuff in that area.
Right, yes.
And the other bare spots on my lawn, though, I wouldn't think they would be.
No, it may not be that. No, it may be something else too, the spots on the lawn. It could be some kind of a disease. It could be dog damage. There's various reasons. Those areas I would try reseeding those areas if you can.
Okay. That was my next question. Very good. Thank you.
Sure. Sounds great. Okay, Brad. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Dave, what is when should the squash plants be treated for the vine borer? And I've never done that. I don't know.
Well, they're not that common, but they can be a problem. I've seen them in the past. What they do is the adult insect will lay the eggs at the base of the plant about the time the squash is starting to vine, and it lays its eggs there, and they hatch out, and they burrow into the vine. And it's like a caterpillar that hollows out the vine is what it does. And usually that vine that gets hollowed out will die. So to try and control that, you could use, there's organic material, spinosad, which we've talked about before here, which you spray that good around the base of your squash plants if you've had problems with squash vine borer. And do it before they really start vining out. And if they're started vining out already, if you had the problems before, go ahead and spray them now. Good, spray it good.
Okay. What is the best time of day to water the plants?
Well, right away, early in the morning is best because we want to use a watering regime where the sun comes out and dries off the leaves fairly quickly. I mean, if you're going to go out and water your tomato plants and you keep the water on the ground and you don't get it on the leaves, well, you can do it any time you want. But if you get leaves wet and they stay wet, that's how fungal diseases get into plants. There has to be moisture on the leaf for the fungus to actually get into the leaf. So if the leaves are kept dry, you have a lot less problems with things like tomato blight if the leaves are dry. So that's the reason we want to water just before sunrise or in that area so it'll dry off fairly quickly.
I kind of just water whenever I want, and if my plants can't live through that, then we're just not meant to be together.
It's a survival of the fittest. Huh?
You know it, Dave.
Right, yeah.
You know it.
Well, see, that works good for people who've got sprinkler systems and things like that. They can set those on there so they water their lawn at maybe 5 o'clock in the morning so that the water gets on there and the sun comes up and it dries it off fairly quickly.
Can I prune a cherry tomato plant once it's over 2 feet?
Well, you have to be careful. Cherry tomato plants tend to get pretty big. The problem you run into is when you start pruning them, you start taking the top off. And when you do, the fruit, as it starts to ripen, when it's really hot out, it will sunburn. And you'll get white patches, almost like dead skin on part of the fruit from sunburn. So that would be the reason. But cherry tomatoes, you expect them to get big.
So
because the plants do get really large.
If you wanted to prune a cherry tomato, then when you pick branches down in the middle?
Right, you'd take branches lower down. Branches that come up from near the base that are just starting to come up, they could go because they're not protecting anything.
Right.
And if they do get flowers on eventually, they'll probably never get ripe.
Right. That top part
the
is
top you need to keep on because
sure.
you need it for shade of the fruit below it.
Someone wants us to repeat or maybe we already talked about this. What was the chemical to use for squash fungus?
Oh, it's called Spinosad. It's a organic insecticide. It's pretty commonly used now, but it's SINOSAD, I believe.
Okay, Spinosad.
Yeah, it's an organic product.
Plant Talk with Dave Decock. Dave, this has been a pretty heavy summer for people losing trees. I think of like Big Floyd Lake.
Right.
Once things get cleaned up, can you plant a tree in the same spot that you previously had a tree?
Right, you can, but probably the best thing to do, if you can, is get the root ground out.
Okay.
And then take all the debris that, when they grind up the root, clean all that debris out after it gets ground up, and then put some normal soil from that area in that, so that the soil in that area is like the soil around it. You don't want to just have them grind out the root and then leave that bone or the root, ground up roots and stuff in there, because if you do, the water's just going to run right through. So it's always going to be dry. So you want to clean it out and put some good heavy soil in there, then plant back in there. That would be okay if you get it ground out.
What about planting trees this time of year? Could you do it?
You can do it. It's just depending on what the weather's like. You know, it's tough on them. If you plant them this time of the year and it's windy and it's 90 degrees out, even if they've got plenty of moisture, the tree is not well enough established to get moisture up to those leaves. So you're going to get some leaf browning and leaf tips browning and that because of them drying out, just not getting enough moisture. That's why the spring is so much better, because we get more frequent rains in the spring, and it's not as hot and windy as it typically would be this time of year.
How can you tell if you're overwatering something?
Well, here in Fargo, it's pretty easy because almost everybody does. You know, it's just the problem here is that if you dig a hole and you fill it with water, it'll probably sit water in it for quite a while before it all dries out. And if you're down at Detroit Lakes or an area where the soil is much lighter, you can't get a hole to fill up with water because water drains away very rapidly. In those areas, of course, it's hard to overwater. But here it's easy because you water it and the soil is saturated. The problem with saturated soil is that saturated soil drives all the oxygen out, too. And the roots need oxygen to survive, too. And that's why they'll get rot, and there'll be problems when you keep them too wet.
The difference between using lake water and well water if you're in the lakes area?
It depends on what the well water is like. I would guess the lake water probably would be better, but you'd have to check the well water to see what's in the well water. I know here using snow water or rainwater is much better than using tap water, because the tap water, our soil has a certain amount of salt in the soil. And when the water moves through the soil, it carries the salt with it. So when we dig or take water out of the tap, it's got a little bit of salt in it. And we can get a salt buildup from using tap water. Whereas water from the lake or water from rain, it doesn't have the salt in it. So that's always much better to use. That's why using distilled water in houseplants once in a while is a good idea, because it'll tend to leach that salt out that builds up in the soil.
This is the time of year where I think of sap coming out of trees, especially if you get a fresh wound from it. Anything I should be doing with that? Can I protect my lawn from where it's dripping down? Is it bad for the lawn at all?
Well, usually if it's just a regular sap, it's probably not. It might make it sticky, but it shouldn't burn it. But around elm trees that have wetwood, it's where the core of the tree gets a dark brown in color. It's called wetwood. And you look at an elm tree that's just been cut down, and usually the center part of the tree is a dark brown. And that's a condition that elm trees get. And when they get when there's any break in the bark, it will leak out there and it'll run down the trunk. And you probably see the elm trees, they've got a white streak on one side. That's from the liquid from the elm wood running down. And that, of course, if that runs down to the base of the tree and gets out in the lawn, it'll kill the grass. But I would guess the normal dripping down from trees, it may be aphids up in the trees. And if it's aphids up in the trees, it's a honeydew that drips down from the aphids. And that's sticky. And if you park under a big elm tree and they've got aphids, you'll know right away what's happening, because your tree is going to have a nice layer of sticky sap on it.
Plant Talk with Dave Decock is on the air every Thursday during the growing season from 1 to 2 o'clock to take all your lawn and garden questions. Dave, should we be concerned if our plant leaves are curling up on the sides?
Well, it could be an indication. Curling up leaves, if they get twisted and distorted and curly, that's just an indication that somebody's been careless with some kind of weed killer. Tomatoes are very sensitive to any kind of weed killer. And if we use lawn weed killer now, especially when it's hot, it will volatilize and get in the air. And when it gets in the air, if there's a little bit of breeze, it can carry the volatilized weed killer around, get on the tomato plants, and it can cause the leaves to get twisted, curled, and distorted. But that's probably the most common thing that will cause twisted, curly leaves.
May not impact the fruit itself?
It depends. You'll be able to tell fairly soon if it's critical or not. A lot of times they just grow out of it.
Okay, sounds good. Plant Tech with Dave Decock. Thank you so much. We'll see you next Thursday.
Sounds great. I'll be here. Yep. Bye-bye.
Sounds good. Thursday from 1 to 2 o'clock. Plant Talk is brought to you by Thompson Greenery, Strand Ace Hardware, Buffalo River Sales, Chisholm Trail Farm, Jeans, The Right Plant Place, and the Garden of Healing.